Welcome to another video. In today's video I'm going to be showing how to set up skid marks using Substrate along with some accompanying sounds. With that, let's get into it. So first we're going to open up Quixel Bridge, and then the texture I'm going to use is the wipe marks from the textures, the imperfections, and just add it to the project. And then once it has been added, go over to content. It's going to be under mega scans, surfaces, and then it's going to be wipes. This is how it's going to show up. And from here we're going to click on the texture, which is the green part over here, green one, and then we're going to say create material, and then we're going to call this m_skid, and then we're going to open up the texture. Just dock this here on top real quick. And then once you open up the texture, this is how it's going to look if you have Substrate enabled. And then from here we're going to change a couple things. From the texture sample, we're going to go by the red channel and then add that to the base color. Along with that, we're going to take the alpha and add that to the opacity. And then between the Substrate legacy conversion and the skid, we're going to drag off from here and then search for Substrate convert to decal. And then this is going to enable the material to be presented as a decal once you drag that into the front face. Oh, if this happens, I forgot one thing. Click on the m_skid and then go over to the blend mode. It says opaque, you change this to translucent gray transmittance, and then it should look like this. This is how it's supposed to look. Now it looks correct, and you just apply, and then you press save. If you're not using the Substrate, if you don't have Substrate enabled, it will look a bit different from this. What you would then do to have the same look using the legacy material editor is under the material domain, you would find this part here. It says deferred decal, and then by the blend mode you would change it to translucent. So then if you change the material domain and the blend mode to deferred decal by the material domain and the blend mode to translucent, then you should get the same look as the one that I'm creating here in using Substrate. So with that, we're gonna go back to the level editor, and then we're gonna go to where the other blueprints are, because we need to create a new blueprint for us. And then here we're gonna create a new blueprint, right click, blueprint. We're gonna look for an active blueprint, and this we're gonna call bp_skid, and we're gonna open this new blueprint we just created. And then in this blueprint, all we're gonna add under here by the add component is a decal. That's all. Click on the decal, and then under here it says decal material. In the details panel, we're gonna look for the skid we just created, the skid material. And then with that, we're just gonna resize this a bit. Let's put it at 0.3 for X, maybe 0.1 for Y, and then 0.1 for Z as well, just to kind of size it down a bit. And then I'm gonna compile and save. Then we're gonna head over to the sports car point, because this we're gonna add the code to spawn the skid marks. In the viewport, under the components panel, we're gonna add a scene component, and we're gonna call this skid rear right. And then we're gonna change from perspective to top view, and then we're gonna move this to the rear right wheel and just position it properly. Position it to the lower section of the wheel, just so when it spawns it doesn't interfere with the wheel that much. And then we're gonna create another one. Just make sure it is actually by the wheel. Okay, and then we're gonna create another one. We're gonna click on the one we just created, and then we're gonna Control C, Control V, and then with the one we newly created, we're gonna press F2 and then just rename it to rear left. And then we're gonna move this one over to the other wheel. So now we have two scene components. And then along with that, we are then going to add an audio component. for the audio, and we're just gonna call this skid sound. And then we're gonna compile and save. Then we're gonna head back to level editor, and we can create a new folder. Oh no, we have a folder for audios. And then in here, we're just gonna right click and then say import. So I will leave a link in the description to the audio that I am using for this video. It is 13 seconds long, so you are gonna have to edit it down to just get a certain portion of it. But with that, we can now just save everything and then head back to the sports car pawn, and then on the audio, with the skid audio or the skid sound audio component selected, we're gonna go under the details panel. By the sound, we're gonna look for the one we just added and then select it, and then we're gonna compile and save. Then we're gonna head over to the event graph, and then in the event graph, you don't actually need to be in the event graph. Under the functions, we're gonna add a new function. We're gonna call this skid effect, and then from here we're now gonna add all the code that is required to spawn the skid effect. First, we're gonna add the under variables by components. We're gonna add the chaos wheel vehicle movement component. Hold control and drag this into the scene. Along with that, we're gonna create a new variable. We're gonna call this skid with a question mark. And then we're gonna hold Alt and drag this in to set it. I'll explain in a little bit why we need to do that. It's regarding the audio. And then from the chaos wheeled vehicle movement component, we're gonna drag off and search for get wheels. The get wheels, one with the many blocks at the bottom. And then from here, by the set skid, we're gonna drag off and say for each loop. And then we're gonna drag from the wheels, and we're gonna connect that to the array. And then from the chaos wheel vehicle movement, again, we're gonna drag off and search for get wheel state. So we got the wheel state, and then from here we're gonna say brake wheel status. And so now we have access to a couple of things pertaining to the wheels of the vehicle. So we have the in contact, contact point, physics material, normalized suspension length, spring force, slip angle, is slipping, slip magnitude, is skidding, skid magnitude, skid normal, drive torque, brake torque, and the ABS activated. We're going to be using 3 of those in this video for the purpose of the skid marks and the audio. From the for each loop, we're going to drag off from the array and search for in range integer. And then for here, we're gonna minimize this and say the minimum value should be 2, maximum value should be 3. This is just so that we limit the spawning of the skid marks to the real wheels. If you look at the vehicle movement component, we go down to the wheel setup, we can see that the 2 rear wheels, these are the 2 front wheels, 0 and 1 are the 2 front wheels, and then 2 and 3 are the 2 rear wheels. These are the rear wheels for this thing, so 2 and 3, so we only wanted to spawn at the rear wheels. And then from the loop body, we're going to drag off and add a branch node, and then connect from the integer range return value to the condition for the branch, the first one. So the first piece of code is for each loop is only the 2 rear wheels active, and then that will be the first condition. And then from the is skating, is slipping, we're going to drag off and we're going to look for or, the or boolean, and we're going to connect these 2 to here. And then from the in contact, we're going to drag off and say and boolean. and then we connect the or to the and. So here we are saying that if it is slipping or skidding and in contact with the ground, then we're going to add another branch node, which is then the second condition. So now is it the rear wheels that are slipping, skidding, and in contact with the ground? So then with all those conditions now fulfilled, we're gonna move on and once again drag in the skid question mark variable we created. From the true, connect that. We're gonna set this to it is true, and then we're gonna drag off. Oh no, wait, don't drag off. We need to bring in the two scene components we created. Hold Control and drag these two in. And then from the scene components, we're gonna drag off and search for the get world location. And then Control C, Control V, one for each of the scene components. These are the coordinates where the skid marks should spawn. And then we're also gonna search for get actor rotation, just so the skid marks spawn in unison with the vehicle's rotation, otherwise it might look a bit weird. And then we are then going to look for, drag off from this skid variable and then say spawn actor from class, and the class we're looking for is the BP skid we made. And then here by the spawn transform, hover over the pin, right click, and then split strut pin, and then connect the first one, the get world location, connect that to the location, and then get the actor transform, connect that to the transform, and then we can open up Control C, Control V this, connect that, and then connect the other one the same way. I'm going to add a couple redirect nodes here, make it look a little bit neater. And then with that is complete. We're going to do the audio because now we're done with the skid mark spawn. I think we can run a test on this just to see if it works. I think we're going to have to make a couple changes to the vehicle itself. So we're going to go to the template, blueprints, sports car, and we're going to go to the rear wheels, friction force multiplier. I think, yeah, that should be fine. I think it should work. I think it should slip. So we're going to play the level. Okay, it's not working. Let's go see why. Okay, I think I know why it wasn't working prior. We actually forgot to add the function to the vehicle's event graph. My bad on that. So here by the event tick, after the interrupts to original rotation, we're gonna add the function we just created, the skid marks function. Just drag that in and then connect that. That's why it wasn't working. So the reason why we want it on the event tick rather than anywhere else is because we want it to continuously be checking whether the wheels are slipping and skidding as we play through the level. So with that, it should work now, right? There it is. The marks are spawning, but as you can tell, there's a little bit of inconsistency with the overlap between them. This is mostly because it's a square texture, so if you want a more smooth continuation between each time the skid marks are spawned, you might want a rectangular one just to get that nice smooth. So with that, the skid marks, we now see that the skid marks work. So we're going to continue on with the code by adding the sound. So to add the sound, okay, let's just add a couple of comments here. Drag over the last section over here, minus the branch node, add a comment, we say skid marks on coordinates, and then over here this is, how would this be? Yes, this would be the conditions, a comment, skid marks on conditions. So now that we've added the comments, we're going to add the audio from the for each loop by the complete section. We're going to drag off and look for a branch node, and then the condition for the branch node will be the variable we created, is skid question mark, hold control and drag it in, connect it to the condition, and then from here we're going to drag off from the true and look for is valid. The question mark is valid at the bottom by the instance strut, and then the object that we need is going to be the audio that we created, the skid mark, hold control and drag this in, and then connect that to the input object, and then control C, control V the is valid, and then connect it to the false of the branch node as well. And then from the skid sound, we're going to drag off and we're going to look for is playing. So from the is playing return value, we drag off and look for a branch node, and then we connect the is valid to the branch node, and then we're going to make a copy of the skid sound, control C, control V here below the second is valid, and then from here we're going to drag off and say stop, and then we're going to connect that to the is valid, and then from the false from the branch node, the top branch node, we're going to drag off and say spawn sound attached. I'm just going to expand this a bit. From the sound, we're going to select the audio we imported, and then to the attached to component, we're going to drag off and say get mesh, so that it spawns on the vehicle itself. And then that will be it. We can collapse this again, that's the only part we need. And then from the return value, we're going to drag off and say set skid sound. And then we're also going to go from the top is valid, from the is not valid, and then also connect this to the spawn sound attached, and then just add a couple of redirect nodes, make things look a little bit neater. And then as that is it for the sound, just drag over everything, add a comment, and then we say play skid sound. So there we're going to compile, and then we're going to test out and see if this works. Just save all, and then let's play through and see if it actually works. So the skid marks are being spawned, the audio is being played as the skid marks are being spawned. And then if you don't want your skid marks to be as prominent as they are, you can go over to the material, and there are two ways you can do this. One is from the alpha, you can add a divide node, just hold D on your keyboard and then left click, and then you add a divide node, and then you connect the alpha to the A and then the output to the opacity, and then you can play around with this with the 2 with the value over there until you get to a appearance that you like. So let's just test out what it looks like when it's divided by 2. So it's not as prominent as the previous one. You can obviously increase the number, just double it and make it 4. And now it's even less prominent than the other one. And then the other way would be to drag from the red channel. Let's first add a multiplier node, drag from the red channel, connect that to the multiplier, and then connect that to the opacity. And then you are going to have to use a pretty big number for this. And then apply that. And then let's go see what this looks like. So that's what that looks like. So yeah, you have options as to how you want to do it. I think I'll stick with the divide and the alpha. -4. But yeah, that's it for the video, and until the next one.